My dad was born and raised in Kennefick, so I've been around this this area my entire life. I'm a United States Army veteran, a combat infantryman, and like I said, I understand mostly about everything that this county needs. Been in this county all my life, the district. Spent a little bit of time in Crosby with my grandparents. So, like I said, I'm native to the district, and I know the old problems that we've had for forever, and I also know the new problems that we have with things like Colony Ridge and the things that need to be developed. I really want to expand Liberty County's economic base so that all of us, like I did for years, have to drive to LaPorte, Channelview, everything from our homes. I'd like to see more of our young people be able to work in our area where we live. Personally, I've been married 32 years, had 2 children, my wife. She was from big city of Cleveland, Texas, where we live now. But, and I hope I can earn your vote. That's basically all I have personally.
My name is Dwayne Stovall. I am a candidate for CD9. My family lineage in this district goes back over 125 years. My grandfather and father were born in Dayzetta. I was born in Baytown. We come from a long lineage of Humble workers, Humble SOXOM, for those of you old enough to remember. I spent 14 years working for Lyondell, which was the old Arco plant across from Sinclair, or the old Sinclair plant across from Goodyear off 225. While there, I started Diamond K Equipment Incorporated and built bridges for the Highway Department for another 14 years. We own Liberty Testing. We've been over here on the prairie for the last 30 years in business. I've been a trustee at Tarkington School District for a number of years. Been married for 35 years, have 3 children and 4 grandchildren, and I've been working inside the Republican Party for probably 15 years. I started going to the legislature due to building bridges back in '99, and it started me down a pathway that I don't suggest anybody get into in politics. You're going to hear a little bit of a different message from me, and it's going to be more of a pro-Texas message. I don't think there's anybody in the room that thinks the federal government is too small or spends too little money, and I'm a big proponent of divesting power away from the federal back to the state of Texas. I do want to make America great again, but I think it's a union, and in order to be strong, you have to have strong individual components, so I'm all about putting Texas first.
Hi friends, good evening. My name is Crystal Margarita De Leon Sarmiento. That's how my mom says it. My dad says Cristal Margarita De Leon Sarmiento. And I'm a born and raised Texan. And since everybody's talking about where they were born, I was born in Galveston. And I was only there for 3 days. And then we moved to Houston, Texas, where I was raised my entire life. I was a city girl. But my mom built the American dream, and for years faced unimaginable circumstances, and her dream was to buy land and buy her forever home here in Dayton. And she has been here for over 10 years. And I want you guys to know that I'm running for Congress to represent this district because it matters to me, because I have skin in the game. I'm a mother of 5. My youngest, you'll see her here, 13. My oldest is 27. And I'm a seasoned business professional with over 27 years in business in all industries, not just oil and gas, but also energy, auto industry, tech, software. And I have the ability and the skill set to represent you in Congress because I know what it's like to have executives check their ego at the door and get to work on solutions. Because without solutions, the people pay the price. And so one of the things I want you to know is that my father did immigrate here from Mexico. And for me, fighting for that American dream is my #1 priority. You, the voter, the people in this district. Because we need a voice for us that's not afraid to hold the line, to stand firm on our Christian values, and fight for what the people of this district need fighting for. Now, beyond that, I'm an elected official in Manville, was mayor pro tem, and am currently a council member. And so I have the experience to fight for infrastructure and to fight to balance the budget, to put taxpayers first. Thank you. Crystal Sarmiento.
Good evening. My name is Alex Beeler. I'm running for the newly redrawn 9th Congressional District, and I hope to earn your vote tonight. You know, everyone running here I think we can all agree we want to pass Trump's agenda, but we also want to make sure that we're going to deliver real results for this district. And for too long, we've seen career politicians governed by polling and prioritize retweets versus actually being results-driven and solving real problems. And so while I don't have a legislative record, I do have a record of public service to be judged by. And that record of public service started in high school after 9/11 when I volunteered to attend West Point. It continued in the Army when I volunteered to defuse bombs in Afghanistan. My husband's here tonight. He's also a West Pointer combat veteran. And after we completed our honorable service, we moved to Houston and we began our careers in oil and gas. And we started raising the next generation of Texans. And I was going about my private sector life when suddenly Texas didn't feel like Texas much longer. In Harris County, we had, after the Beto wave, the most progressive form of government in the entire country. And so I raised my hand to run against Lena Hidalgo because quite simply, government was everywhere I didn't want to be. It was masking my 18-month-old daughter, and it was defunding police, and it was nowhere that was needed. So we had a high tax, high crime, weak infrastructure local government, where in the past, we modeled really the best, most efficient of good government. And after a very close race that took the entire DNC to beat me, Kamala Harris flew down, Hanoi Jane Block walked against me. I didn't hide in the corner. I continued to fight for our region. And in fact, I spent a year battling to secure our elections and earn the endorsement of Trump's top election attorney, Cleta Mitchell, who was instrumental in the Save America Act that just passed the House tonight. And she's also been leading the fight for Georgia elections. After that, I continued my service for our community, and I was appointed to be public safety chair at Metro. So as the lone Republican on a 9-person board, I managed to significantly increase funding for law enforcement. And I'm very proud of that service, and hope you vote tonight. Thank you.
Howdy, and good evening, fellow conservatives and MAGA patriots. My name is Briscoe, Cain. I'm a Christian, I'm a husband, I'm a father of 5 boys. And I believe that America is at a turning point. I believe we're witnessing a revival of bold, Christian conservative warriors who are unafraid of speaking the truth and pushing back against that woke mind virus that's trying to destroy this country. I believe that now, more than ever, that America needs fighters in Washington to stand up for the working class, to stand up for our retirees, and to put America first, to help Donald Trump finish the job. I've spent the last decade in the Texas legislature delivering the results for my constituents. I told them that I would go to the legislature to fight to secure the border. In my first session, I filed the first state-level border security bill. We banned sanctuary cities and made crossing the border illegally a state felony. I told my constituents that I would ban mask mandates and vaccine mandates. We did it, and we won. That's why I'm endorsed by Texans for Vaccine Choice and Texans for Medical Freedom. I told my constituents that we stand up for veterans. That's why in Texas we pass laws that ensure that widows of fallen soldiers no longer have to pay property taxes. So we pass laws that allow their transfer of their college credits from the military to be used here in Texas. So that's why we're in support of veterans for America First. I told my constituents that I stand up for the workers, such as my fathers from the working class and others. That's why I'm proud to say I'm endorsed by the Campaign for Working Families and the Oil and Gas Workers Association of America. Not only fought for those things in the legislature, but in Congress, you take my word, I'll do the same. In Congress, we'll fight to safeguard Social Security, protect Medicare from cuts, ensure that we don't raise the age again of our seniors so they have stability. In Congress, we're going to ban sanctuary cities and defund any county or city that's not cooperating with ICE. When I tell you we're going to do it, it's because we did it. I ask you to partner with me.
Thank you. My name is Dan Mims. I'm asking for your vote to serve you in Congress. I've spent my whole life in the districts where I met my wife, where we raised our family. I spent a lot of time in Liberty County over the years. We had a business. We served many clients in the district, in the county. And we purchased cattle at the auction in Raywood, where we used them at our beef processing plant. And over the last few months, I've had the privilege to meet a lot of great people here in the county, and it would truly be an honor to serve you in Washington, D.C. We also have a business in the district, Mims Meat Company, doing $50 million a year with 175 employees. Those employees depended on me to make the right decision every day. I did that for 25 years. The last 22 years, I've served on the Board of Trustees of San Jacinto College, where I'm currently chair of the board. When I got on the board, it was a really good regional college. Today, we're ranked the #2 college in the nation out of 1,100 community colleges. there are a lot of politicians and attorneys in Washington, and they've been working within the system their entire career. If that's who you want, I'm not your guy. I'm a businessman, and I'm going to get results. This is a crowded race. There are 9 candidates for this seat, 4 of which do not live in the district. Now, they said they'll move in if they're elected. I'm not sure that's really good enough for me. When I get to Washington, I want to work to codify President Trump's executive orders, especially those pertaining to border security and immigration enforcement. I want to work with local officials to bring good jobs so our young people can afford homes to build families. I want to work for you, not political benefactors, not Washington, D.C. Special interests. You, my neighbors, my friends, and my fellow citizens of District 9. Thank you.
I think this is probably a bipartisan issue, at least I hope it is. Let's talk about Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh boy.
Many voters believe the Epstein case represents either a massive federal cover-up protecting powerful individuals or a politically amplified controversy. Which of those do you believe is closer to the truth, and what should Congress do about it?
I think the first thing you said reflects more of what I believe. I believe we're learning that we are the people, but we are not protected the way the elites are. I think that in this government you have a level of people who are protected in ways that we could never even perceive being protected. Those Epstein files are just indicative of what we deal with every day that we don't get to see. Imagine how much of this goes on that we don't get to see. I don't think we're going to see any kind of satisfaction until somebody goes to jail over this, until people who are the demons behind all of this get what's coming to them. There's no justice involved in this situation at all, and the redacted documents that are being released are a waste of our time. Is there anything more to that? This Epstein issue has been a disaster from the get-go. We thought we were going to get some movement. As a matter of fact, everybody remembers in the last election cycle there was so much campaigning on the Epstein files, and we're going to see so much results. We've seen nothing. Nothing. And they keep stonewalling us every moment. I think that somebody needs to be brought to justice over that. That's it.
Mr. Mims.
Same question for everybody?
All right. Sadly, I don't think we're ever going to know the truth. And I wish I could stand here and say differently. It's probably a combination of everything you mentioned. I think definitely there's a cover-up, and I just, we're never going to know the truth. I wish we did. I think as a member of Congress, I would certainly do what I could to get as much of the factual out and let people make up their own minds. But it's going to be an uphill battle, and I think it'll be true for any of us on this panel to get that done. But certainly there was a grave injustice done to the young ladies. There was a grave injustice done to really our nation to put us in this position. And to see someone go to justice would be a great thing. I'm just not sure I have the total faith and confidence that that'll happen. But certainly would put my effort towards making it happen. Thanks.
I fully believe there was a lot of wrongdoing done. I think it's been covered up for a long time. I think that if we dig deeper, it'll only get worse. Okay. I don't believe until I see people in handcuffs that they'll ever be held accountable for it. I think it goes so deep that it would probably eliminate probably half of our Congress and all the elite, what they call the quote unquote elite people. This was something that with too much power and things that it just, they think they can get away with anything. Okay. It's one reason I believe in term limits. Okay. Somebody's been your congressman or your senator for 40 years. They have no connection with their home place. They're worried about the power in Washington. Okay. I'm a regular guy, and I don't think I would ever get away with anything on that Epstein list. Not even the first thing. But I think the Epstein list and the problem, I think it'll never be fully resolved. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I see people in handcuffs doing the perp walk. But I never think it'll ever be fully resolved, because there's too many powerful people behind it and way too much money.
Read that question one more time. Many voters believe the Epstein case represents either a massive federal cover-up protecting powerful individuals or a politically amplified controversy. Which of those do you believe is closer to the truth, and what should Congress do about it?
It's a good question. First off, what comes to mind is, I hope y'all agree with me, I don't think Epstein killed himself. A little fishy the way it surrounds it. But I am afraid that if there are issues there, no one's ever going to be brought to justice. The way it's been handled, the way it's been rolled out, there are no witnesses that have not been tampered with, and there's no way to find a jury that hasn't been biased by this information. They've put tons of things together that may or may not be related to it, released it to America, that has caused witch hunts and people looking in different directions than where the real problem lies. The Texas legislature, we passed a law to make it much easier to go after pedophiles and child predators in our schools to hold them accountable. In D.C., I can give you my word that I will fight to hunt down all the pedophile rings there are, go after them and dig them holes and put them in the ground. But it's really that easy. If you're like me, if you're tired of a two-tiered justice system where the elites are treated differently than the working class, so am I. So if you've got my word that Congress, we're going to go after the pedophile rings and expose it, hopefully get it better next time.
Okay, so I have strong opinions about the Epstein files. First of all, it's disgusting, it's an atrocity, and if you read my Facebook post, which is public, from 2 days ago, or probably yesterday, because I can't keep count of what day it is anymore, bring it all down. I want every single person that has anything to do with child sex trafficking, all of the atrocities that we heard, and the victims see justice live. I don't care who it is, what side of the party it is, if it's all the way from the president down to the aides, every single person needs to be held accountable. No one is above the law. And I am sick and tired of Hillary Clinton and all the elites getting away with things that we know that are not conspiracies. These are atrocities that are happening to the people, and they're getting away with it. I'm done with it. When I get to Congress, you better believe I'm going to fight tooth and nail to redact everything and hold those people accountable. They don't want someone like me in Washington, because I don't play games. I'm a mama bear, and that disgusts me. Secondly, I have spent years fighting against sex trafficking with organizations in Houston. I have fought side by side with organizations to bring to light that sex trafficking is the #1 crime that is happening in Houston on the I-10 corridor. Most of that comes from Mexico through open borders, and it's an atrocity, and I will fight to unredact those things and bring justice to the victims. Thank you.
I raised my hand to run for the seat with a very simple goal of we've got 2 years left in President Trump's tenure to pass as much of the America First agenda as possible. And I know that people like me and my family, I'm worried about boys playing girls sports with my 5-year-old daughter. I'm worried about the open border and the danger of crime. And I want to make sure we codify President Trump's border policies and actually deliver real results for American families. Democrats will have nothing more than to flip this seat. This is the #1 target in Texas. And the more that we continue to talk about Epstein, yes, it's not satisfying. Congress has released the documents. There's nothing that anyone on this stage is going to be able to do to change that. What we need to do is deliver real results for the families, and that is what I am trying to do in this seat, is pass and codify President Trump's America First agenda.
All right. While it is not a requirement to live in the district, do you live in the district, and what makes you more suited to represent it than someone running for the office that does live in the district? We'll start with you, Mr. Dwayne.
So I was drawn just outside the district. We sold our house. The house we sold was under 5 minutes. 85% of the district has voted for me. I employ people in the district. Our business provides a critical service, and most important, I've built the key relationships and have the skill set to be the most effective representative for the district. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So I've been very transparent about being a member of the council in Manville, which was also drawn out of the district. It wasn't the existing 9, not the entire district, but part of it was in Al Green's district. And I got calls from day one to run against him. And then when the lines were solidified, I looked at the map and thought, well, my mom, if anything affects my mom, it affects me. We own property here in Dayton, smack dab in the middle of Liberty County. It's personal to me. Not only that, my husband, who's sitting there, he works for Centerpoint Energy in South Houston. My godmother, I was baptized in this district, and so the reality is that these lines will change again. And so whether they draw your congress member in or draw them out, they're not defined that way. And constitutionally, we are all here to represent the people of this district, and my fight, no matter where my address is, which it will be here in Dayton, is to fight for the voters. My passion is you, and to make sure that you have a voice that cares. If it affects my mom, it affects me. If it affects my husband, it affects me. And the policies that are going to be enforced if the Democrats do win this seat, because this is no longer a safe seat, is why I answered the call from people like my mom to run for Congress to represent this district. Thank you.
The question is if you live in the district, the answer is yes. But I think an important way to understand that question is, will you be able to vote for yourself come March 3rd?
Yes.
Many of those folks won't be able to. Now, grew up in the district, went to kindergarten in the district, graduated from high school in the district, went to St. Jack, U of H, lived in the district the entire time. In fact, in my decade of representing East Harris County in House District 128, which you're required by law to live in, I've lived in more of the new 9th district than my own hometown. My farm from the district, my first job was there. Look, I've been a proven conservative leader of much of this district for more than a decade. When my constituents wanted me to pass a bill to ban boys from participating in girls' sports, we did it and won. When my constituents wanted us to pass a bill to get perverted, mentally unhealthy, unstable men from going into your restrooms, your bathrooms, your locker rooms, your safe spaces, we did it. We won and got them out. So in Congress, if you're wondering from someone who's from the district, who has represented their people in the district, who has performed for their district and brought home victories for their district, when I tell you that I will do those things in Congress, that will get them out of the girls' sports for the rest of the country, that will protect the rest of the country from perverts and going into their bathrooms, you can take my word for it. I ask you to join me so we can make it happen.
Well, the simple answer is yes, I've got very deep roots in this district. Got very deep roots. Like I said, Kennewick, Tarkington, Cleveland, Dayton. I've worked a lot of different jobs in my life. I spent a good amount of time with a company called Union Tank Car. It's outside of Cleveland. And probably the highest, I probably had 400 employees that answered to me. Okay? And you know, that's one of the things, like I said, I have a saying in this campaign, kind of a slogan, I guess. I want to represent you because I am one of you. I think I can say that better than anybody else on this stage. It's my opinion, but that's what it is. I've been around the world and I came back. You know, I've been to the Middle East. I've been to, Korea, been to South and Central America. But I've always lived here because at that time I was in the military. Okay. And then when I wasn't in the military, I went to Iraq to haul fuel. That may not make me the most smartest person in the world, but it was something I felt and I needed to do. My home is here, and like I said, I want to represent y'all because I am one of you. Thank you.
First, yes, I'm a lifetime resident of the district. I'm proud to be from Channel Texas. When I grew up, it was a great place to live. We had great families, great educators. Very proud of my lineage there. Why am I better? Well, no one on this panel has the breadth of experience that I have. Nearly 40 years in business. I spent 27 years making my community a better place to live through North Shore Rotary Club and through the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. I spent 22 years helping students achieve their educational goals and making them job ready through my service on the board at San Jacinto College and the work that we've done there. I've got ag experience. We've raised cattle. I've worked in my business life. I've worked with farmers storing seed from planting season to planting season. So I understand this district. Channelview was a blue-collar town. Mims Meat Company was a blue-collar business. This is a blue-collar district. I know what it's like to work. My father made sure I knew how to work with my hands and the sweat of the brow. That's this district. We work for a living. That's what I've done all my life. I'm used to working 60-hour weeks. It's no big deal. This is not pressure. I've seen pressure. This is not it. Trust me. I am the best person to represent this district. Thank you.
Dan does have more experience than the rest of us, and it's only because I like you and you're older than me. So, I've been in business here in Liberty County. Yes, I can vote in this election, and actually I have a voting record prior to running for office too, and we have an issue with that in this too. There's multiple things going on here. It's experience, it's context of character, it's the ability for the voters to actually do their own due diligence. I've been in business for 30 years. I came to Cleveland by way of rodeoing and found my way at Stansel Park in Cleveland and told my wife I can't believe somebody actually lives here, and 30, 60 months later we own land out here, and I've been here ever since. Working shift work down at the refinery, having a life experience is very comparable to most of the people who live up here. This is not a stretch for me to relate to everybody in the district. So my difference comes in my involvement with the legislature and the Republican Party and the governmental system that we live under. I run an organization called Get Off My State. We teach federalism across the USA. I've worked within the Republican Party for the last 15 years, been a delegate to many state conventions, authored a number of the party planks that you deal with today. Functionally, this government is in trouble. It needs to shrink. It doesn't need to get any larger. You're going to hear a lot of discussion about growing it and spending. You're not going to hear that from me. So my suggestion is do your due diligence, go to the websites, do your research, and find out what you can. Thank you.
We can start with you on this next question. Will you pledge to support the Republican nominee in the general election?
Yes.
Thank you.
You want to answer?
Feel free to qualify.
Oh, can I just say ditto? Yes, absolutely. I'm definitely not voting for the Democrats, so that's an easy one. Anybody says differently, I'll be surprised.
That's going to be an absolute yes, because why I think I would be the best representation of the district. Whoever wins, I will support.
Question is, would I support the Republican nominee? Absolutely. You know, Republican primary fights are family feuds. But once the primary is over, it's time to get the work done. We got to remember Reagan's 11th commandment, thou shalt not speak ill of a fellow Republican. Why? Because the real enemy, the socialists and the communists, are the ones closest to the door. Those are the ones we must get rid of first. That's the true area that we are here to fight, right? And so in the Texas legislature, I've worked in the first body. We have a Republican-controlled body, just as you do in D.C., with 150 members. I was one of 150. There's triple that in Congress. But I know what it's like to fight on the floor. I know what it's like to have to make deals. I understand that the legislative process, it's not just about filing bills and writing those things, which I have great experience in. You got to know how to get it through. You got to understand the parliamentary procedure. In fact, it's one of the most important things. In fact, I've developed one of the skills of being one of the top parliamentary procedure guys in the House. Something I used recently when Jeannie Wu the chairman of the House Democrat caucus tried to sneak in a law that would require the display of the 5 pillars of Islam in every classroom in the state. It was my understanding of those rules that it was able to spring forward and single-handedly stop it, and we won. So when I tell you that I have the experience, the tenacity, and training to go to Washington, D.C. and hit the ground running on day one, you can trust me. Thank you.
This way, that way. Look, guys, we're all fighting for the same thing here, and he's right. The enemy is socialism and communism, and it is creeping in. And we have a very short window to make sure that we keep fighting for the right thing. Regardless of what happens in this primary, and I trust the voters and they'll make the best decision on who can win a general election against a very top nominee that the Democrats are supporting. I pray you do your research, because at the end of the day, everyone up here is a solid candidate. I respect every single one for fighting the good fight. But at the end of the day, we really need to support whoever can win in a general. Thank you.
So, yes. And to echo the other points, the biggest issue is we either control the House come November and pass an America First agenda, or it's 2 years of impeachment and you see everything undone. There's no progress delivering results for families, and that's what we all want to do. Thank you.
Russell, point of information, when we can only do a response when we're named, or is that
Or
like
you have 2 30-second responses that you can use at any point you want. Yeah, right. Yep.
Write down my little.
So, all right. So a lot of these questions have been submitted via email or by folks here tonight. We're unfortunately not going to get to every one of those questions, but I just want to let you know we're trying the best we can here to get to your questions. To all the candidates, are you going to vote in our best interests, or will you vote as you are told? Ms. Miller, we'll start with you.
Who submitted that?
Really?
So, yes. And more importantly, I will be voting to focus for this district too. So it's not just about doing what's best for some sort of other regional group. It's about how do you deliver results for this whole district. And that's why I've been so aggressive about wanting to support law enforcement and to focus on growing jobs. Because when we can grow jobs, especially which will be generated by the strength of our port being the #1 port. I think we were neglected under the Biden administration. We'll be able to support good growth, high-paying jobs here in Dayton with Gulf Inland. And so that's the case that I want to make, is not only do I want to pass an America First agenda, I don't think there's an America First without this district's economy being on fire. I want to do everything I can to be the advocate for this district. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a history, and you guys, I challenge you to go online to YouTube and to watch 3 years worth of Congress meetings, council meetings, where I have stood toe-to-toe, guiding discussions and fighting big money developers in favor of my tax-paying citizens and the voters. I have a record of fighting for them, and it is proven, and it is very transparent. And it's one thing to say, yeah, I think if I'm in the hot seat, I'll vote with what's best for the constituent. It's another to actually have the experience to go back, track it, and be able to point to it. Thank you.
If you watched the session of the Texas legislature over the last decade, you would know that I'm not very good at doing what I'm told. The first session, I was an enemy of Speaker Strauss, where I'd be at the back of my fighting him over and over again, recognizing that meant they would be punished and that your bills were suffering, but you could still get things done if you understood how to, have some friends help you out. I recall in 2021, when I was chairman of the elections committee, I was brought and told I needed to file a 3-page bill. I told them no. They said, "The chairman, you have to file it." No, find someone else to file it. So they let me do my own thing. We eventually filed and got to the floor on a bill that was made cheating so difficult and voting so easy that the Democrats broke quorum and ran off to Washington, D.C. Anybody remember that? That's what not saying yes looks like. We've got enough yes men in Washington. We need fighters there. We need people with experience on legislative matters. I've got that experience. I've been a chairman 3 times. Chaired agriculture and livestock. Ag's an important thing here, where we passed a landmark right to farm legislation, including a constitutional amendment to ensure that local regulations and ordinances cannot impede or make it too hard for our farmers and ranchers to be able to have a lifestyle and to put food on the table. I'm not a yes man. I've been a no man my entire life, and in Congress, I will put my constituents first and the values that I told you I was going to do first. That's what matters. I told you I was going to do, and we're going to do it.
Well, first off, you've always heard the old phrase that all politics is local. Okay? My allegiance is to the district first, state second, national third, depending on the situation. I mean, national security bills and things like that, of course, those are national. But I will never vote, no matter who tells me, to something that does not benefit this district. I'm from here, some of y'all know me. I'm one of the most hard-headed men that you'll ever meet. Okay? I have a good nature, comes off that way, but when it gets real serious, I can get real tough real fast. Okay? I will never do anything to harm this district. Like I said, professional politicians and everything is what's got us to the point that we have yes men. They're more worried about their own power inside the loop in Washington than they are inside their own home district. I do have a lot of academic knowledge of the way government works. I can tell you how from the formation of a bill to the time you drop it in the hopper and it goes to the different committees all the way through. But no, it's always district first, and it's what's best for us.
Well, the good news is I have zero political debt. I don't owe anybody anything. When I go to Washington, I'm going to work with leadership. I'm going to work with other members of Congress, but I'm going to work for you and only you. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to be accessible to you. I'm going to be back in this district as often as I can, making sure that I'm doing that which you want me to do. I don't work for anybody in Washington, D.C. I don't work for any PAC or any special interest group. The good news about being largely self-funded in a campaign, you can do whatever you need to do for your district. You don't have to worry about what anybody else thinks. And that's the position that I'm fortunate to be in. So I promise you, when I get to Washington, I'm going to work for you, I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to do the things that are right for this district, listening to the local leaders, listening to the voters, and again, just working on your behalf. Thank you.
I get there's a lot of repetitive answers going on because everybody's kind of seeing things the same way. The idea of being in Congress is your voice of the people, and those people need to be your local congressional district. Outside of that, it needs to be the state of Texas, and I think that people need to refocus that. We've got to be willing to go there and not only fight on behalf of the voice of the people in your district. You got to fight on behalf of the voice of Texas. You've also got to fight against those influences that come from states that don't want to do things that protect our way of life or our culture. So the idea of going there and protecting us has to do with things like restricting who's holding office and amending the way that we allow people to get into office at this day and time. How do you go there and you sit across the table from an Omar and do the best thing you can for the state of Texas? There's lines in the sand that are going to be drawn. And I want to go there and be that person, that voice that's going to fight to divest power away from that federal and give it back to the state and this district and allow us to live with the smallest amount of federal influence in our lives that we possibly can have. That's my goal. Thank you.
Going around for this minute, you can start with this next one. Just a few months ago, we all witnessed the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk. Why do you believe that political violence has reached such a heightened state, and what role will you as a member of Congress play in addressing this?
Man, that's a loaded question. It's so broad. I want to hyper focus on immigration, but it's such a large portion of what we're dealing with. If you look at like H-1Bs, visa issuances across the USA, you can look at numbers and it'll tell you real quick. The gaslighting that's been going on for the last 25 years in corporate America that says we're only getting the best and brightest and they're filling the jobs that we can't fill, it's nonsense. If you look at the numbers, we'll have as much as 80% of the H-1Bs coming from India, and 70% of those are coming over in entry-level jobs. My idea is you put a moratorium on all of it. No more immigration. None. Zero. Matter of fact, I would go so far as to start proposing that we start revoking visas that have already been issued to people who come from other countries that want to do us harm, or come from systems that don't comport with the U.S. Republican form of government. So this all adds to that undertone of political upheaval that you see. You have kids today who are going to universities that are trained by people who come from foreign countries who just drive in their head that somehow America's bad. That's a core situation, and I think it all kind of comes around to how we allow people into the USA, and I think that's one of the biggest problems we have to deal with, and I want to deal with that.
I remember the day vividly. I was driving to Austin. I was on the Beltway listening to Clay and Buck when that tragedy occurred, and I can't tell you the emotions I felt. There was sadness, there was anger, and I think the reason for this, the reason for the assassination is, unfortunately, there are a lot of people in this world who have been taught to hate from day one, and the anger and the I hate to say this, but sadly, most of it seems to come from the other political side of the spectrum. But they every time you listen to them, hate this, hate that, and I grew up. My parents taught me to respect everyone, no matter who they were, and that's the way I've ran my business. It's the way I've worked in the volunteer organizations where I've held leadership positions. It's the way I've managed the board of trustees at San Jack. You have to work with people who have different opinions, and my thought on that is, we all have different life experiences, and those life experiences affect how we view life. And we may not agree with someone. That's okay, but you still have to respect them and learn how to work and try to work through problems. So I think the solution is to respect one another, not add to the vitriol, and hopefully maybe we can tone it down in this world. Because if we don't, I'm worried about our grandchildren.
Repeat the question.
Sure. As a member of Congress, what role will you play in addressing the heightened state of political violence?
Okay. As a member of Congress, how you address this, and I think the way we got to this area started with our education system. Okay. Back when the Department of Education was founded, the way they measured success was by standardizing test scores and everything, and they taught people to take the test. If you teach the subject and you teach the students how to think, then they have a better rationalization, better social skills, better ideas of their own. Okay? As a member of Congress, we have to, for one, start working with the other party, because there is going to be people from the other party there. There has to be more of a back and forth. And quite frankly, if you get some of the career guys out, they're not, you can have a better conversation back and forth. I mean, I know one of the candidates on the Democratic side of this. I think he's a good guy. Don't like his politics at all. Totally disagree with him. But I don't think he's a bad guy. Okay, if you understand what I'm saying there. There is common ground to be had on some things, and then we just have to work towards there, but without ever giving up our principles. Thank you.
there's a bright line to that census act of violence that assassinated Charlie Kirk, it would be what we're seeing right now, which is an uprising of young Christian conservative men and women on the college and high school campus. And I was the college activist myself. I founded the first pro-life law student organization this side of Mississippi. Was president of the Federal Society Law School and the Law Student Republicans. In fact, went on to found what's now called Law Students for Life America and Medical Students for Life America. And I still travel and go talk to students, explaining to them that God calls the willing and then qualifies those whom He calls to encourage them to be voices on campus. In fact, I was the first government official since, I believe, 1921 to be shouted down at a college university and be kicked off campus. Sadly, when we passed the campus free speech bills, you started seeing those getting written. I'd say I inspired it. Frankly, it's because they didn't care about it until it happened to one of them. So in Texas, we passed really strong campus free speech bills. But let's think about the violence thing. That's an important one. I believe one of the most common metrics with that is a broken home. We got to restore masculinity to make that okay. To allow boys to be boys and to put fathers back in the home. That's how we end that violence. We find respect for our fellow man and we put God first. Because this country was made for moral people. And if we don't have a moral people, we won't be free for long.
There's a gentleman in the back wearing a freedom shirt that Charlie Kirk was wearing the day that he was assassinated. And it's things like that that are terrifying to me, because as my 13-year-old daughter was sitting there, where she went, but she looks up to Charlie Kirk and has read a lot of the things that he puts out. And as a homeschooling mom who is teaching my children and lives by Christian principles, I am very vocal about my Christian faith. Before I even thought about running for politics, for 27 years I've served in churches, led worship, led kids ministries, served with Family Foundations International, you name it. I don't just say these things because we're in politics. This is who I am. It's the fabric of the decisions that I make. And I am very, very vocal about my love for Christ and the Holy Spirit in me. And if that can happen to Charlie Kirk, I'm terrified of what can happen to my daughter when she goes to a college campus and tries to evangelize the lost. It is terrifying. Now, the question was, what would I do in Congress to help stop that? First of all, we need to have transparency when it comes to the FBI and finding out who assassinated Charlie Kirk, because we still don't have answers. There's a lot of questions about who really did that. And really, we need to make political violence, sorry guys, you're not going to like it, but the death penalty. And it needs to be televised. If you kill one of our Christians, then you need to be televised for what you did and pay the price, and justice must be served. Thank you.
So under the Biden administration, combination of Democrat political leaders and media was very effective in dehumanizing conservative beliefs, Christian beliefs, and we saw that with the assassination attempts on President Trump and the tragic results for Charlie Kirk. And what needs to happen, and what is happening now, is that the FBI and federal law enforcement needs to be focused not on political opposition, which is what happened to any outspoken conservatives, but actual domestic terrorism, and that is Antifa. There is a common thread with a lot of these threats, and we need to be very aggressive about using law enforcement to actually go out, not people that disagree with you, but domestic terrorism, and that's what I'll fully support. Thank you.
All right, next question. Mr. Mayor, how would you prioritize federal infrastructure funding for flood control, roads, and port expansion in this district while ensuring fiscal responsibility?
Math. So if you look at the federal budget, it is our deficit spending. So what's driving this deficit spending? So one step, very much in favor of balanced budget amendment. We have to get out of continuing resolutions, get back to appropriations and passing actual budgets. But our entitlement programs are unsustainable. So we have to eventually get to solving entitlement problems, getting government back to doing core services. Infrastructure is a core function of government. You cannot go and build a bridge as a private citizen. You're not going to dredge the port. That is the infrastructure backbone, what we are owed for paying taxes to the government. All of these other special projects that we've continued to grow, federal government's been buying EV chargers under Biden administration, Green New Deal, all of those subsidies have to go. We cannot compete and have jobs if we do not have a port that is commercially competitive. It's embarrassing. We're the largest port in the country, yet, so 3 million jobs, 20% of Texas GDP. There's 3 or 4 ports that are more competitive commercially based on depth. So what I want to do is get on appropriations. We're the largest city. This region has not one Congress member on either side of the delegation on appropriations. Every other city has a member. How is that possible? And it's reflected in the sad state of our roads. So I will be a very fierce advocate to make sure, because we already do in our state, we send more federal dollars than we get back in our freeways as well, that we actually have the infrastructure we need to get government out of the way so private enterprise can flourish, create jobs. And what I will do is working to make sure right now that we have sustainable entitlement programs, because the honest truth that no one will say is that that next generation here, there's nothing going to be left for them. No one is trying to solve it. And what I want to use is use my strong financial background, roll up my sleeve, and start working on solutions. Thank you.
Okay, so infrastructure is one of the things that we cannot afford to not prioritize. As we know, Texans, if you live within a 50-mile radius of here, you probably suffer with a famous little thing called flooding. In my entire life, I've grown up hearing politicians say, I'm going to help this, I'm going to help that, we're going to bring more dollars here, and it doesn't happen. And if you get stuck in traffic right here, like I did for 30 minutes behind the 2 trains that were completely at a standstill on 90, there's not even a plan to get that fixed until the winter of 2027. So in council, what we were able to do is to create a plan first strategy. So I have experience being able to look at what is coming so that we can plan ahead of that. And what we need to do in Congress and have a representative here is to go and prioritize here, getting the tax dollars to come back here to build ahead of time. So we're not reacting after the fact. We need to be proactive and not reactive. And the most important thing right now is infrastructure, because this place is growing like crazy. We got to get ahead of it. And I have experience doing that and getting to Congress. I will fight to prioritize those dollars to come back here. Thank you.
Tommy, could you do your question again?
Yeah. How would you prioritize federal infrastructure funding for flood control, roads, and port expansion in this district while ensuring fiscal responsibility?
Solid question. Well, of course, we can tell you about what we've done so that you can trust me when we say we're going to do it. You know, in Texas, this last session, we made record investments in roads without increasing the gas tax. And that comes from prioritizing spending and cutting wasteful spending in order to put it there. We also, if you voted on these constitutional amendments, we put $8 billion to the Texas Water Development Fund. Half of that is going to go to repair aging infrastructure. Guys, we're losing millions and millions of gallons of water underground without knowing about it because our pipes just haven't been updated in a long time. I think of the I-10 bridge over the river Centerstown, when it's been hit by those barges. Anybody been struck by that or not able to get across that bridge? Just a few sessions ago, I was able to secure $172 million in the budget to get that done. And now, that does require working with federal counterparts. It's over a federal waterway. We can't just go there and do it ourselves. So I have the experience of working with federal counterparts in order to bring down federal dollars. Now, obviously, from Congress, we do it the opposite way, but I have the understanding of how to work with these people. When we did Project 11, I was there. I represented the district then. I represented the district when we completed Project 11. I was in the meeting groups with the city council members and mayors and other heads of organizations. And to tell you, that's why organizations like the Associated Builders and Contractors, in fact, it was yesterday, I believe, awarded me a Champion of Industry Award for my work in recognizing the importance of construction and contracting trades here in Texas.
One thing we have to do in Congress is, ever since I started this campaign, I've talked about reducing federal spending and looking for the waste and the fraud. And the way you do that is by actually passing a budget for the first time since 1996. Okay. Texas is known as a donor state. I've talked about that. Well, that means that we send more money to Washington than we get in return. Yep. And it's been that way for, God, it's got to be 40, 50 years now. It's a blessing and a curse for the state of Texas. We do well, so, we get to send our money to other states. One thing, you have to fight to get those dollars back. Two, we have to reduce spending, cut out the fraud, the waste, and then we can afford the projects that we need in this district. One, there must be a bypass around Dayton. Cleveland already has one, but there absolutely needs to be one. Anybody that sets the traffic in Dayton, there's a whole group dedicated to the stupid Dayton train. If y'all have ever seen that. Okay. I've called it that many times and much worse. That is one thing, bypass, that's going to require, federal highway funds. That's US 90. Okay. Work off of it. And we've got to get our money back to us. Thank you.
Two topics that are near and dear: infrastructure and budget deficits. And sometimes they work against one another. My entire business career has been working around logistics. I mean, that's the business I was in, moving product from point A to point B in the most efficient means possible. We needed good roads. We still need good roads. If you talk about the Port of Houston, the freight gets heavier. We've got to beef up our roads coming out of the port. 225 is going to have to be expanded, and it's going to have to go up. 610 Bridge needs to be replaced. And there's probably more projects over here in Liberty County that I'm just unfortunately not yet aware of. But what I will do is work with county officials, because those are the best people to guide those of us in Washington on what's needed locally. Same thing's true with flood control. We have an issue in the Harris County portion of the district where most people's flood water comes through our district to get to the bay. Well, you've got that same problem here. So we've got to address it, but we have to figure out how do we do it without further bankrupting our grandchildren. And that's where we have to work on reducing waste in our budget, make sure we're spending it just where it needs to be. These NGOs and things that we're throwing money away on have to stop. We have to spend that money here locally to benefit the citizens of this district so that you can travel uninterrupted, get to your jobs, get to your homes in a decent amount of time. Thank you.
I'm going to guess that I've got more experience with infrastructure and highway construction than everybody up here. And I'm going to tell you that I'm coming at it from a totally different direction. You can't be financially or fiscally smart and expand any kind of infrastructure. And I'm going to disagree with something that was stated earlier, that somehow this is the federal government's job, is infrastructure and roads, and it's not. It never was. We participate in it. But anybody think that it's a law that the state must participate in highway funding? It's not. My idea is you get the state legislature to write a nice little letter to the federal government and say we're going to opt out of highway funding, and we're going to keep the fuel tax that we send to them here and fund our own. Now, outside of anything that has to do with national defense, anything along the ports, anything you want to deal with there under a defense guise, there's no reason for us to participate in the federal overlord looking over how we do our business. They're 1,500 miles to our east. All the smarts are here. We have all the engineers that we can stand. We can do everything we want to do here. We don't need to wait for them to give us a thumbs up because we're following their rules and paying their wages. This is a pretty clear situation. If you don't believe what I'm saying, go to James Madison when his last act when he left the presidency was to veto the bonus bill, which was our first infrastructure bill, and he made it perfectly clear. They do not have the authority to manage all of our infrastructure in the states. We're sovereign states. Act like it. The budget's something that's going to take structural changes. You're not going to go find waste and abuse. Everybody uses those terms. It's going to take structural changes. And until we even change the narrative, we're not going to go anywhere. We're going to continue down the same path.
One more question.
Everybody tired? Everybody ready to go to bed? No.
We ain't even started.
What federal reforms, if any, do you support to strengthen election integrity and restore voter confidence? The SAVE Act was mentioned earlier. Maybe you can explain your thoughts on that and how that will positively impact our district.
You start with this.
Anyone can go?
I think you gotta go first. Are we going back here? Well, as was stated earlier, the SAFE Act has passed the House. They're gonna get a little bit of a rebuttal in the Senate. Hopefully it passes and we get it enacted. For me, I kind of went back to the same, I'm odd man out on this deal. There is no federal requirement or construct in which the states have to follow their guidelines as far as requiring citizens to vote. Meaning, the federal Constitution is clear that citizens will vote. If a state wants to write further policy to restrict people who don't have identification or don't have a qualified identification, that is within their right. There's no reason for us to answer to a federal overlord on how we're going to manage elections. So in the state of Texas, I'd like to see them write very, very strong identity required. Now, and it's an interesting concept because we're getting into an age of national ID, which is a different discussion altogether, although we're all falling into the situation where we're all on the list somewhere. But at the end of the day, I think Texas needs to get guidance to strengthen ours and to make it so that you must provide ID, and you've got to be in a situation where we can stop this abuse of illegal aliens and non-domiciles. Dan and I have both been in trucking for many years. We're dealing with a situation where we've got illegal aliens and non-domiciles getting driver's licenses based on bad visas that are expired, and then they're going and getting voters registrations. I think the state needs to address that. And we can fight for it at the federal level, but that fight's different. I think the state needs to take it on too.
Well, I certainly appreciate the House of Representatives passing the SAVE Act today, and I'm very hopeful that the Senate will do so also when it gets to that chamber for a vote. I definitely believe that you need an ID to vote. I mean, there's not much in life you can't do with an ID, and so asking someone to provide a valid ID to vote just seems pretty simple, pretty reasonable, and there's really not a reasonable argument against it. The other place we need to start is with our census, because that affects our whole country as far as districting and so forth. If you're not a citizen of this country, you shouldn't be counted in the census. The census is to count citizens, not people who are here illegally or otherwise. So if you're a citizen, great. If you're not, you don't get counted. Certainly if you're not a citizen, you don't get to vote. These are just simple, common sense things that need to be in place. Now, I happen to be a personal fan of early voting. Some people don't like it, but I like to be able to go get in and get it done. I'm usually one of the first ones to go vote, and I know probably a lot of you guys are too, but then there are traditionalists that like to vote on election day. But I think I'd leave that open. But I do believe in in-person voting. I don't trust mail-in voting, and I definitely don't trust this idea of online voting. I think that's just ripe for abuse, and we're inviting a lot of trouble. Thanks.
What federal reforms, if any, do you support to strengthen election integrity and restore voter confidence?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I certainly hope the bill that's passed the House gets past the Senate, gets signed into law. Because, like people have said up here, I think it's common sense. There's not very much you can do without showing your ID. You can't cash a check. You can't buy alcohol. You can't buy, I mean, there's a ton of things that you can't do without ID. Voting is a kind of a sacred act, okay? It's for the people, and if you're voting in your district, it's a way of making sure that you're voting in the right place, which, somebody outside of your district does not have to say so in where the district votes. I think it's just that simple. I think this bill will help. I think it should be. I think only citizens should vote, because immigrants have either earned that right by becoming citizens, or they're natural born citizens like the rest. I think that's the two categories that needs to vote. I think it should be law. Other than that, I think That is just the part and partial of it that makes sure only citizens vote in elections and they vote in the right place. Thank you.
Having the SAVE Act come out of the House is a great first start. Let's, of course, see what the Senate does with it and how they mess it up. But here in Texas, of course, you've got to be a citizen to vote. However, I did follow the bill to make sure you had to be a citizen to register to vote, because there is an odd gap in our law and something still needs to be done in Texas to fix it. You know, in 2021, let's start back. In 2020, when President Trump was having problems in Pennsylvania, me and some friends hopped on a flight, flew up to Philadelphia, where we worked with President Trump's legal team. But if you remember hearing the story of Republican ballots being placed in a suitcase in Philadelphia, you remember that? I exposed that when I wrote the affidavit and took it in. The case later became what's called the Mike Kelly lawsuit. It went to the Supreme Court, and sadly, under certain doctrines like the Purcell doctrine, there was just no way they were going to give us the victory they wanted. When I returned back to Texas, having earned the trust of the grassroots of the president and of Greg Abbott, that was named the chair of the House Elections Committee, where again, we crafted and passed a bill that made it harder to cheat and easier to vote, one that the Democrats broke quorum on, they hated so much. We brought in paper ballot backups, that auditable paper that ensures that no matter what may happen on that computer, you can still go back and look at that paper and make sure that your votes were not changed. When there's been issues of maybe not enough ballot paper showing up to voting locations, this session we passed a law to ensure that a 40% more must show up, so there's no chance of running out. When Harris County was having issues with the election administrator, I filed a bill and got rid of the election administrator. So in Congress, when I tell you that we're going to ensure that we have federal ID, federal voter ID, we're going to do it even better. It'll be free to taxpayers so they can have it.
Can you repeat the question?
I've already turned the page.
What,
Hang on one second. What federal reforms, if any, do you support to strengthen election integrity and restore voter confidence?
Okay, restore voter confidence. So definitely support the SAVE Act, and like my colleagues have all said, definitely what we want is for the Senate to pass this. The most difficult thing that I've heard about this and why so many people are opposing it is that it's going to take a long time for married women to take their birth certificate, which that name doesn't match your ID, and that may create a backlog. However, I will say this. If you care about voting, then you'll do whatever it takes to make sure that you have your voter registration, and I do believe that we need to facilitate making whatever needs to happen in order for voter registration not to be inhibited, but really supported. I went to FedEx something yesterday, and I had to show a valid ID, and I was shocked because there are states where you don't even need an ID, and I think that the argument that it's racist to ask for an ID has been disproven. In this country, it's extremely easy to get an ID. It's the bare minimum, and we should have done this a long time ago. Now I'm going to take it one step further. Not just solidifying citizenship for voting, but also there's Congress members that have dual citizenship in countries that there's no law that says that they have to disclose that. So if we have people in Congress that have alliances with other countries, I think they need to disclose that so that we know that we are the first priority at all times. Thank you.
So, big broad support agreement that yes, you need ID to register to vote, aid to vote. That's what just passed was the Save America Act. But the piece that I've learned going through my year-long election contest and earning the endorsement of Cleta Mitchell is what the Trump administration is doing now with Harmeet Dillon. You have to enforce voter roll maintenance, right? So people move, you see them on the national change of address outside of a several $100 deposition, which you hope they would come to per vote. There's no enforcement. So in places like Harris County and in my election right after the results, they started updating the voter rolls for people that had moved in 2020, several years later. This is a huge issue that goes on in blue states. And until you start having regular enforced voter roll maintenance, you will have big gaps. And also what we've seen is obviously vote by mail is the one most prone to fraud. Nothing's more secure than voting in person. And really with election integrity, it's similar to Second Amendment. They want to continue to water down inch by inch. And so how you see this play out, we did drive-through voting in Harris County. Now why did they do that? Well, if you can drive-through vote, then why not online vote? And if you can online vote, then why not auto enroll? So we have to put safeguards to make sure those, unless you have health issues, some real restrictions, very limited use of mail ballot, because nothing is more secure than voting in person. Thank you.
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
It's my 30 seconds. You know, we talked about drive-through voting in Harris County. Well, I was there. I was a member of the legislature. Me and some others, all that important others, we filed litigation to put a stop to it. And in that next session, I fought for and passed legislation to ban drive-through voting, and we won. Really, the question before you guys is not what you really think about those election matters, but whether the candidate up here has the skills and the background and the experience to get it done. These are a lot of great ideas, but I've put ideas into action. These are not words. Thank you.
Anybody else want to use their 30 seconds for anything? Because we're about to go to closing statements. Anybody? All right. Okay.
One of the topics that we haven't discussed is immigration. And as the daughter of a Mexican-American immigrant who did come the right way, I think that we have all talked about immigration ad nauseum. And we cannot sit here and let Democrats run with the narrative any longer. We have got to stop being apathetic, we have to engage, and we have to discuss real common sense solutions. Because deporting all immigrants is not going to happen. What we need to do is deport every single criminal violent alien, but we need to figure out solutions for those who love this country and want to be here and fight for the American dream like both my parents have. Thank you.
All right, one last thing, real quickly, because I am so close with the district, there's problems. I don't want to see Liberty County become just a bedroom district for Houston. Okay, Houston is not part of the district. We are what we are. I want to see Liberty County develop more jobs, more economic footprint, so that we can take care of our own. It's just a point I want to make right quick. So.
First, again, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to visit. I always love talking to voters. It's one of the privileges that all of us up here get to do, and I never lose sight of just how special that is that we're able to do this in our country. When we get to Washington, we're going to have to work with people. I think people skills is going to be one of the things that's going to carry the day. The one thing I've got experience is working with people and getting people who don't agree with me to coalesce behind the right decision for the right reasons. I've done that in my volunteer organizations. You volunteer in whole leadership positions at HLSR. That's a bunch of type A personalities. If you can work with them and get them to coalesce and get behind a decision, that's a big day. Same thing is true on the San Jacinto College Board. Our races aren't partisan, but our members are. So I have to work with 6 other members and get them to put aside their partisanships and make the decisions that are right for our institution and right for our students. Ethics is a big deal in Washington, D.C. And I think we need leaders who are going to go up there who don't have the burden of, again, having any political debts, that are going up there for the right reasons. I'm not going up there for another career. I've had a career. I think that's where term limits come in. I guarantee you I'll set my own term limits. I'm going to be there 10 years, and then hopefully somebody will come up behind me that's qualified and wants to do the work and take over. And I don't, I might love you to death, but you don't need to be in Washington for 30 years. Nobody needs to be in Washington for 30 years. They don't need to be there for 20 years, to be frank. But we need people that are going to go up there with integrity, that are going to go up there and represent you, the members of this district, and only you when they get there. And unfortunately, some people lose sight of that once they get in office. Thank you.
Well, like I said, I don't owe anybody anything since I'm mostly self-funded by campaign, little as it is. Me going to Washington as your representative, it's just that. I'm representing you. I'm going with a purity of purpose that I don't owe anything to special interest. What I owe is the people of the district. If you elect me, I answer to you. I don't answer to the party. I don't answer to special interest groups. I've always been that way. I've been a leader in a lot of different areas of my life. Right now, I'm a one-person self-employed person, so I guess I'm leading that. But I've led from small groups all the way to large multi-shift facilities. I've looked at millions of dollars worth of income, revenue, and turned it a profit. Okay, we didn't have the luxury to just keep spending, and just keep printing money. The major thing that I'm going to focus on in Washington is, one, we have to reverse our debt. It's 37 trillion, 38 trillion, 40 trillion, whatever. Those are unbelievable numbers. The only way we can do that is by actually going through line by line how we spend our money. And you look at the waste and fraud, they're saying, it's not going to do it. 9 billion in Minnesota? Maybe 19 billion? Who knew all you had to have was a daycare center? You multiply that by the other 49 states, and I include us because we need to be on it too, and just think about how much money that is. I've never been in a company that you could not find 10% in reduction. Just have to be smart. Thank you.
Tonight, you will have heard from 6 of the 9 candidates. There's 5 of us up here, 5 Texans, 1 California. But really what matters most is a lot of us, you're going to hear them tell you what they're going to do. The old adage goes that some talk conservative and others prove it through actions. In the legislature, when I told my constituents when I was first running for office, I pledged them that it would take my House seat from being the 14th most liberal Republican to number 1, and we did it 4 times. I told my constituents that I would look after the refineries and fight for the oil and gas industry. We passed legislation and we blocked even worse stuff. We blocked the Green New Steel and banned companies that boycott oil and gas from able to invest in the state of Texas, leading to a divestment of BlackRock of over $8.5 billion. We did that and we won. When you're wondering the direction that someone's going, you can know it's where they've been. So when I told my constituents I'd stand for the Second Amendment, I have fought for it. So we fought for constitutional carry, and we won. I fought and carried and passed the bill to ban red flag gun confiscation order, something that happens to a lot of our veterans, and we won. That's why the only non-incumbent congressman, congressional candidate to be endorsed by the NRA, but endorsed by Gun Owners of America, the National Association of Gun Rights, and the Texas Association of Gun Rights. Now, in Congress, I give you my word, we'll fight to protect Social Security and Medicare for our seniors. My word that we'll fight to bring down the cost of housing. It's something we did in Texas, but really it's up to the feds to ensure that BlackRock and major hedge funds can no longer purchase our single-family homes and take them out of the market and prevent the next generation from having the American dream. Now, I only have a few moments left. You've heard what I do. You've heard my experience. I've done it in the courtrooms. I've done it in the legislatures. I've done it in the halls. I ask you to partner with me, to join me, to become a part of our team, so that we can ensure that the next generation inherits a freer and more prosperous America. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody that took the time to come and share your entire evening with us and see how important it is to be involved in the elections that truly matter. A lot of people don't take the time to learn who the candidates are, and not only that, but what's going to be their driving foundation? How are they going to make their decisions that truly affect you?
I'm worried about what's going to happen at the United States of America that's going to affect not just my children, but my children's children. And one of the things that I want to make sure that everybody knows is that, first of all, I'm a seasoned professional with, like I said, over 27 years of being able to sit in boardrooms with highly, highly intellectual PhD clients of mine, guide them and coach them in a way to help their businesses succeed, make strong decisions, build workforces, and really fight for what's right. I also want to share something that I haven't shared before, is that my grandfather, who passed away in 2020, served 50 years in ministry and died as a VA chaplain, and spent his entire life fighting for veterans and guiding them to Christ. Secondly, I want you to know that I'm not here to talk talking points. Everything I have said, I challenge you to verify it. But the thing that I want you to realize is when you go to the voting booth, it is your job to vote your conscience, but beyond that, it's your job to vote for the person that you know can win the general. Now, I said it before, we have very strong opponents here. We're fighting for the same thing, and many people haven't even realized the true demographics of this district. And I'm going to say it again because I think it's important to know. 62% are Hispanics. I'll take my next 30 seconds and I'll use them here.
Yeah, on closing.
Not with closing? So I have one that I needed to use. Okay, well with that, please come chat with me. I'm happy to answer questions, but we really need to look at who's going to be able to be our voice in Congress. Thank you so much.
In Congress, you can do as much or as little as that you want. And what's been consistent and clear about my record is always answering the call to serve. And that is my goal, is to use this as public service so that when we get to Congress, what I want to do is roll up my sleeves and start tackling the complex problems that actually matter to families. That means securing the border. I'm proud to be the only candidate in this room that is endorsed by the National Border Patrol. That means cutting regulations, cutting permitting, so that we can actually accelerate job growth, get government out of the way. That means reducing our budget, actually passing a balanced budget so that you're not all being stifled by the hidden tax of inflation. And because of that work ethic, what I'm so excited about is that I've been endorsed by Jim Jordan, Trump ally and conservative stalwart. If you could please just be a little quieter. I will continue speaking. But if you look at the team, what I'm most proud of is from TNPA all the way down to every law enforcement association in this district has said they wanted to partner with me. The majority of mayors, including Mayor Hebert in here, has said they wanted to partner with me. Past former mayors for Deer Park, former mayors from Pasadena, current and former from LaPorte, there is a strong list of people that said they want to work with me to solve the issues that matter in this district. So I hope to earn your vote. Thank you.
How many do you think that it's sane to believe that you can represent the best interest of 800,000 individuals as a single representative? You're a little out of scale. The messaging always sounds similar. Go there and speak for the people. I'm going to call on you tonight. You got the hardest job here because you got to figure out who it is has the best character, who it is has the personality, who it has the foundational skill set that's going to go represent you in the best way possible. It's a very difficult position to be in as a voter. I'm going to say, from my history with the Republican Party, which is almost 2 decades now, I ran for U.S. Senate against John Cornyn in 2014 and 2020. I pulled almost 250,000 votes in 2020. Largest campaign in the state, 1,500 volunteers plus, not a lot of money. $100,000, almost 250,000 votes. Very proud of that. Met a lot of really great Texans over the course of that time. In this day and time, you better pay attention to the fact you're being marketed to. This is politics. This isn't your neighbor. These are people that have a lot of money, and they're throwing messaging at you constantly. I'm just like you. I'm just like you. I'm just like you. It's very difficult on the voter side to figure out who it is that's truthful and who it is that's not. It's tough, but I'm going to say don't follow the shiny objects. In politics, in my last 20 years of dealing with this inside the machine, the most money is almost always the wrong choice, if not every time. You follow the money in politics, you're going to find the worst possible choice you have. The due diligence you have is to get outside of the marketing and try to do your own research. Make phone calls, talk to people that know these people, figure out the context of character you're dealing with. Go to the website. If you want to learn more about me, you go to Less DC, More Texas or PuttingTexasFirst.com. Both of those have a theme. They mean it. You go there, you can learn all you want. My number's on the About page. Call me with any questions you have, and I hope to earn your vote. Appreciate it.